thank you so much for joining me again in the kitchen at Thuya Hill. I'm very glad to have you here as we are full swing into the Christmas preparation season. Many of us have already been preparing delicious holiday treats, and I wanted to share one little recipe today with you of a great cookie that I grew up with as a child. It's a delicious traditional Christmas cookie, and I really hope that you enjoy today's recipe. Today we are going to be making SPRITZ. This is a really special little biscuit type of cookie that is loaded with butter and egg yolks. It's a very rich cookie. The good news is you make them quite small, though each little cookie packs quite a punch. They're not very big, and so it's fun to enjoy a few at a time. We are going to be using a recipe that I grew up with. My mother has been making these cookies every year, like the Christmas bread, for as long as I can remember, and I hope that this is a fun one to add to your holiday baking repertoire. So without further ado, let's get started and make some holiday SPRITZ cookies. So one thing you will need for this recipe is a biscuit maker. Now this is a really high quality biscuit maker made in Italy, and I can tell you from experience that it is worth the money to buy a high quality SPRITZ maker. Over the years we have used many different kinds. The hardest part is when you're in the middle of making cookies and your SPRITZ maker breaks. Ask me how I know this. Now you can get creative and make your own little shapes. It's totally fine. What's super fun about these cookies is that we use the shape of little Christmas trees. So that's always the goal. And if the SPRITZ maker breaks, well then you don't have your little Christmas trees, which can be a little bit of a disappointment. So invest in a nice cookie press if this is something that you will be doing every year. It will be well worth your time and effort. As I mentioned, this recipe calls for a lot of butter. In fact, we're going to be using 1 pound of butter in these cookies today. You want your butter to be room temperature. It doesn't need to be cold, so keep that in mind. We are also going to add 1 3/4 cup of cane sugar to this recipe. All right, next we are going to blend together the sugar and the butter. One key note with this recipe, it's super important that you do not beat or cream the butter and sugar together. I know it sounds picky, but if you do that, it will change the consistency of the dough. So you will just want to simply blend them together gently. Okay, so I have gone ahead and blended together my butter and sugar, and now we are going to add 3 egg yolks. I've already gone ahead and cracked my eggs, and so I've got 3 beautiful orange egg yolks in here, and I'm just going to add them to our butter and sugar mixture. I am also going to be adding a teaspoon of pure almond extract. Now this is one of the keys of this delicious recipe. The almond extract is a key player in the taste factor of these cookies. It makes them taste and smell so delicious, and so feel free to add a little extra if you'd like. So there's our almond extract, and we're going to mix this together and then go ahead and add our flour next. All right, last but not least, we're going to add our 4 cups of all-purpose flour. And I'm going to be doing this by 2 cups at a time so that it doesn't become too overwhelming to stir. You might be tempted to think that this would be easier with a blender, and I can assure you, though it would be easier, it would certainly change the texture of your dough. So resist the impulse to use a blender and just use your hands. The texture of the dough will be far better if you do it that way. And now we're going to add our additional 2 cups of flour for a total of 4 cups of flour. Okay, so we have mixed up our SPRITZ dough, and as you can see here, it's kind of crumbly. Don't worry about it, because once you get it together in your hands, it's almost like Play-Doh, and it will just form into a beautiful dough. What we're actually going to do now is take our dough and put it into our SPRITZ maker. And with this particular one, you can see there's a little white circle right here. I'm going to pull the lever back, and it will leave this whole tube open so that I can put dough inside. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. This dough doesn't have to be ice cold like some doughs do, which is kind of nice. It smells so good, like almond. It reminds me so much of Christmas. Okay, so now I have got my SPRITZ maker all full of dough. I'm gonna go ahead and put the cap on. What I'm using today is a little Christmas tree. You can see the design right here. It's in the shape of a Christmas tree. And I'm gonna get on making my SPRITZ. All cookie makers like this work a little bit differently. The rough idea is that you put it down on your tray like this and pull the trigger. It's a good rule of thumb that when you're making SPRITZ, you try a few out first. Oftentimes it takes a couple of tries to get the groove and to get the arm motions just right in order to get that great looking cookie. So don't worry if several of your cookies don't come out looking good. You can always just pick them up and put them back in the bowl and try again. Another note is it's a good idea to not use parchment. Because this dough is so rich and full of butter, oftentimes what can end up happening is when you start to make your spritz, they will stick to the parchment and then it will be hard to remove your cookie maker from it. We have found the best way to make these is just on a simple stainless steel baking sheet like this. It makes for a very easy release when you're picking up your cookie maker, and they come off just fine once they're done baking. So now here we go, let's get on making our spritz. Okay, so as you can see, I have got my little spritz cookies all formed onto my cookie sheets. They are very much imperfect, but super cute and endearing for the season. What we're gonna do now is add some turbinado sugar to the top of these cookies. Many times people will add dye to this dough to make it green, and they'll use different kind of sprinkles to put color, but I just prefer a plain colored dough with some brown turbinado sugar. I think it just adds kind of a festive, sweet look. So now we're gonna get on sprinkling our cookies before we put them into the oven. These cookies bake very, very quickly, so you'll want to keep your eye on them. We are going to put them in a 375-degree oven for just 4 minutes. And I recommend keeping the light on so you can see if they're burning or not. Once they've cooked for 4 minutes, you will remove them immediately from the baking tray and place each individual cookie on a cooling rack so that they don't cook further. You don't want them to be overcooked or undercooked. They need to be just right when they come out of the oven. All right, friends, here is our delectable plate of homemade Spritz Christmas cookies. They are quaint and cute and perfect bite-sized little cookies for tea or for dessert. And I love the way they look on this festive Christmas plate. So I hope that you have enjoyed today's video, my friend. It's always a pleasure to have you here in the kitchen at Thuya Hill, and I hope that you are thoroughly enjoying this beautiful holiday season and baking your own delicious treats at your kitchen for your family. So thank you so much for coming back to today's video, and I very much look forward to seeing you in the next one. Goodbye for now.